Hi, this is the second video about the UB Noizflow version 2 update with a closer look on the logic template. When you open the template, you see some basic tracks. First is the logic drum machine, second is the startup kit, followed by some basic harmony tracks, and at the bottom you see an audio track. There is no UB Noizflow folder anymore. The key tracks that are connected to the logic drum machine are hidden, and there are 3 ways how to access them. First way, open the mixer and select the All mode. Here you see all key tracks that are connected to the logic drum machine. If the logic drum machine track is selected, you can trigger all corresponding key tracks. Press C1 on your MIDI keyboard and see how the key track C1 responds. Press D#1 on your MIDI keyboard and see how the key track D#1 responds. If you select the key track in the mixer, you see that the logic drum machine track is deselected. And now every key of your MIDI keyboard is routed to the selected key track. Use the left and right arrow keys of your Apple keyboard to select the desired key track. Note that the plugin window, as long as it's linked, responds to the selected track in the mixer, like the channel strip in the inspector. To get back on the logic drum machine track, you only need to press the arrow down key of your Apple keyboard. If you want to get back to the key tracks again, move to the startup kit track with the arrow down key to get the selection back into the mixer. Now you are able to use the left and right arrow key again to select the desired key track. Arrow key down, logic drum machine track is selected. Arrow key down to select the startup kit track and to reach all key tracks with the left and right arrow keys. That's the recommended navigation between the logic drum machine and the corresponding key tracks just by using your Apple keyboard. The second way how to access the key tracks is to open the group settings. On the top you see the key track groups that correspond to the logic drum machine. By unchecking the box in the H column, you can unhide the groups. Here you see that all kick tracks appear in the range, sharing all the same group color and the same signal path. The third way to access the key tracks is to click the H button in the menu or by toggling the H key of your Apple keyboard. To unhide single tracks, simply enable the H button in the track header. Let's take a closer look to all hidden tracks. First one is a folder track that contains some groove templates. Move to screen set 9 to see the content of the folder and to add the desired groove templates to the quantization. The second track is a folder track that contains the TouchT Setup. Go to screen set 3 to access the content of this folder. TouchT is a special touch track setup that enables an Ableton Live clip-like workflow inside Logic, but only with MIDI regions. All the folders down here are already assigned to the touch tracks object, with the settings to trigger and toggle loop and to start at quarter notes. The regions are sorted in octaves with piano key colors. Just to give you a basic example how to work with it, because the details we have to cover in a separate tutorial, select the region C3 that is assigned to the MIDI key C3 of the touch tracks object and move it to the startup kit track. Rename it and update the view of the touch tracks object by moving the scroll bar. You see that the name of the region appears at C3. Draw some notes inside the region and start the sequencer. Select the touch track in the arrange and press C3 on your MIDI keyboard. You hear how the region loops. Press C3 again to stop it. Note that this only works with a running sequencer. Let's go back to screen set 1. Beneath the TouchT folder you see the sidechain kick track with a MIDI region that contains 4 on-the-floor MIDI events. You can feed the sidechain of every plugin with this signal. Between the key tracks and the logic drum machine you will find aux channels where all drum signals are routed to. Use these tracks for automations and stuff. Beneath that you will find the startup kit track with the dry standard kit loaded as a starting point for drums, and a bunch of empty software instrument tracks for harmony instruments. The hidden ones are created just in case you need more bass, key, guitar, string or horn tracks. Every track is routed properly. Bus 1 to 9 are 4 effects like reverb, delay and saturation, and 2 free ones to feed the sends. Bus 10 to 19 are buses for single drum sounds. Bus 20 to 29 are the instrument buses. It's all documented in the installation guide under mixer and routings. So that are the hidden tracks in the main arrange. Hide them again to get a clean view. Let's go to screen set 7. Here you see the main arrange like on screen set 1 with an additional access to ARP. With ARP you can create rhythmical patterns on every track with any kind of MIDI note input. Select the startup kit track and turn ARP on. ARP only works while the sequencer is running. Play with the settings. You can control ARP with the caps lock keyboard interactions. On the right side in the project notes you have a description about the controls and how to access them. Click on the pencil icon to open the text editor and to get access to the links. On the top you see the links to Speedupmydaw's YouTube channel. Beneath you see a description of the caps lock keyboard interactions. Note that this manual relates to the US-UK keyboard layout. If you have a different keyboard layout, check this link here and modify the caps lock keyboard description. The big pick link gives you a visual orientation. With the caps lock you open the keyboard. With the numeric keys you choose the octave. With the blue key down below you choose the velocity you want to work with. The ARP controls are on the octave -2 velocity 98 layer. You have to press the 1 on the numeric keys and the B key to access them. With this key you turn the ARP on and off. With those keys you change the settings for the direction. With those keys you change the settings for the resolution. With those the settings for the note length. With those the settings for the octave. With those the settings for the amount of strokes. And with this key you switch the controls from ARP 1 to ARP 2. Turn the caps lock keyboard on. By default the octave 2 and velocity 98 layer will open. Press the 1 on your Apple keyboard to move to the -2 octave. Press this key to turn the ARP on and off, and change the settings as you like. Press this key to switch the controls from ARP 1 to ARP 2. This button on the right side tells you how both ARPs work together. Parallel means they work independent. Serial means that ARP 1 feeds ARP 2. Let's take a look at the channel strip controls. You see it's on the Octave 7 Velocity 98 layer. With this key you open the instrument plugin. With this key you open the FX plugins. With those both keys you move the plugin slots up and down. Mono and solo the channel strip with these keys. With those keys you bypass the FX slots. With those two guys you increase and decrease the EXS Transpose. Press the 0 key to access the Octave 7 layer. Open and close the instrument plugin with this key. Open and close the FX plugins with this key. Switch between both. When the FX plugin window is open, you can move the FX slots up and down with those two keys. You see the clip distortion plugin that is loaded in the first FX slot. When you press this key, you move a slot down, and the channel EQ is displayed. Now we see the multipressor and at least the compressor. You see we can move up and down, switch between the instrument and FX plugin window very fast, just the way it should be. Those two keys are for solo and mute, so you don't have to leave the caps lock keyboard to access those controls. With those keys you can bypass the first 6 FX slots. Let's move to the startup kit track. Unload the current instrument. Open the EXS editor. Throw a bunch of kick samples inside, starting at C1. Create an empty MIDI region, draw some MIDI events on C1, and press play. You hear now the kick on C1. And if you change the EXS transpose, you can preview the kick samples on the other keys while the sequencer is playing. The MIDI event in the region is still on C1. The EXS transpose changes the incoming note. For this task, you can use those two guys. They increase and decrease the EXS transpose. Let's load the amp designer. And move to the Octave 7 Velocity 120 layer. So the keys E and D are for model up and down. T and G are for amp up and down. Y and H for cabinet up and down. U and J for mic up and down. So that are the UB Noizflow Caps Lock keyboard interactions. Let's go to screen set 8, and there is Switch. Switch consists of a MIDI instrument and a macro that switches the MIDI channel of incoming notes by using a MIDI keyboard. You may know this as key switches in a multi-timbral instrument. The low and high buttons display and define the key switch area. The articulations button displays the current selected MIDI channel and provides a customizable description of every channel. Select the switch MIDI instrument and drop it in the tracks area. Let's change the articulations window to channel 5. Select the switch track in the arrange and press a note on your MIDI keyboard. You see how the switch macro changes the MIDI channel of the incoming note from 1 to 5. Let's load a multi-timbral instrument to the strings 1 channel strip. I prepared the Contact 4 sampler with some EXS strings articulations. And while it's loading, let's customize the articulations description. I prepared this too in a text document. Select it all, copy it to the clipboard, triple click on the arrows of the articulations window to open the editor, and choose the option to paste all names. Close the editor and update the articulations window. Let's open Contact 4 and see what's loaded. You see different articulations, all assigned to different MIDI channels. Now we have to connect Switch with the strings 1 channel strip. Simply drag the monitor to multi-timbral instrument in the mixer environment window and connect it to the strings 1 channel strip. Switch is now connected and we can access all articulations. Now we have to define the key switch area. The fastest way is to turn on the set button next to the low display and to hit a key on your MIDI keyboard. I'm gonna choose C0. And here you see, both displays change their settings. The low one is set to C0 and the high one is automatically set to D#1. The reason is we have a maximum of 16 MIDI channels per instrument and D#1 is 16 semitones above C0. Turn off the low set button and press D#1 on your MIDI keyboard. The articulations display will immediately switch to channel 16. Press C0 to switch it back to channel 1. All those keys are now part of our key switch area. C1 is the low and D#1 the high border. But we don't need 16 channels. We only need 12. So let's find channel 12. It's B0. Turn on the set button next to the high display. Press the key and turn the set button off. Now everything is ready to play and you can access all articulations with your MIDI keyboard. Okay, one last thing. Instead of using a multi-timbral instrument, you can connect Switch to a channel splitter and connect each channel to a channel strip. Or you can use both to combine different libraries and to layer sounds. If you need more than one switch, simply copy it and repeat all previous steps. Well, that's it. In the next tutorial, we will explain TouchT in detail and the undocumented features of Logic's Touch Tracks object.